Life thrived here, unaware of the fire to come. Art and luxury defined the Roman elite's daily existence. Even the simplest meal was a ritual of community.
The mountain awakens, and history changes forever.
In the year 79 of our era, Pompeii was a thriving city on the Bay of Naples, a Roman metropolis shaped by trade, pleasure, and ambition. Its cobblestone streets bustled with activity, its temples rose toward a Mediterranean sky, and its citizens lived without suspecting that the mountain dominating the horizon was about to awaken. Within a few hours, Vesuvius would unleash a destructive force equivalent to 100,000 times the energy of the atomic bombs dropped on Japan, burying this vibrant city under meters of ash and pumice stone. In this video, I use modern artificial intelligence tools to bring historic paintings, maps, and engravings to life, shifting perspectives, changing camera angles, and moving through these scenes in ways their original artists could never have imagined. The goal is not simply to look at the past, but to step into it, to walk through Pompeii as it once was, and feel what it might have been like to stand here on its last day of normalcy. And if you stick around until the end, we'll compare these same locations to how they look today, to see what time has changed and what still remains before we set foot. In ancient Pompeii, it helps to understand how it came to be what it was. The city had been founded centuries earlier by the Oscans, had passed through Samnite and Greek hands, and finally became a Roman colony after the social wars of the 1st century before our era. General Sulla established a colony of legionary veterans here, and from then on, Pompeii underwent a process of Romanization that transformed its architecture, its culture, and its identity. By the 1st century of our era, the city had flourished to house between 10,000 and 20,000 inhabitants, becoming a vital commercial center where maritime and land routes converged. The city spread over an ancient prehistoric lava flow, its walls encompassing more than 60 hectares of organized streets, imposing public buildings and private residences that reflected the wealth and refined taste of their owners. The Forum was the beating heart of Pompeian life, a vast rectangular space paved with travertine slabs where citizens gathered to trade, debate politics, administer justice, and honor their gods. Measuring approximately 157 meters long by 38 meters wide, the Forum was surrounded by a 2-story colonnade that combined the Doric order on the lower level with the Ionic on the upper. The space was closed to cart traffic by steps and barriers, reserved exclusively for pedestrian passage. Here stood the city's most important buildings: the Basilica, where justice was administered and business deals were closed; the Macellum, where fresh foods brought from the countryside and the sea were sold; the building of Eumachia, dedicated to the wool trade; and the offices of the magistrates who governed the colony. In the days before the eruption, this space would have been filled with merchants hawking their wares, citizens discussing the latest news from Rome, lawyers seeking clients, and slaves carrying loads from one end to the other under the Mediterranean sun. Dominating the northern end of the Forum stood the Temple of Jupiter, dedicated to the Capitoline triad of Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, the same deities who presided over the main temple of Rome on the Capitoline Hill. Built around the year 150 before our era, the temple marked a decisive moment in the religious history of Pompeii, when the cult of Jupiter replaced that of Apollo as the city's principal deity. The building rose on a podium more than 3 meters high, accessible via a monumental double staircase leading to a portico, supported by 6 Corinthian columns at its front. Inside, the cella was divided into 3 naves by 2 rows of columns, where the statues of the gods were venerated. The temple had suffered severe damage in the earthquake of the year 62 and was still being repaired when Vesuvius awakened 17 years later. From its steps, Pompeians could gaze directly at the mountain that would soon seal their fate, though at that moment no one imagined the latent danger that sleeping giant represented. To the west of the Forum, the Temple of Apollo was among the city's oldest places of worship, with origins dating back to the 6th century before our era, when the Etruscans exerted influence over the region. The sanctuary occupied a sacred precinct surrounded by a portico of 48 columns, where a bronze statue of the god stood upon a pedestal, his bow drawn toward the sky in the attitude of shooting. The courtyard also held representations of Venus, Hermaphrodite, Mercury, and a bust of Diana with her bow, reflecting the syncretic nature of Roman religion that absorbed and adapted divinities from other cultures. For Pompeians, these gods were not distant abstractions, but active presences in their daily lives, whom they consulted before undertaking journeys, closing important business deals, or making decisions that would affect their families. The temple also housed the Mensa Ponderaria, an official system of weights and measures that guaranteed honesty in commercial transactions in the adjacent forum. Moving away from the political and religious center, the Via dell'Abbondanza extended as the city's main commercial artery, the Decumanus Maximus, connecting the Forum to the Sarno Gate at the eastern end. This cobblestone street, nearly a kilometer in length, was flanked by shops, workshops, bakeries, and taverns that served the daily needs of inhabitants. Deep ruts from cartwheels are still visible in the paving stones, along with elevated stepping stones that allowed pedestrians to cross the street without getting their feet wet when rainwater or waste flooded the roadway. On the exterior walls of buildings, painted graffiti announced upcoming gladiator spectacles, recommended political candidates for municipal elections, declared loves and hatreds, or simply expressed the everyday thoughts of those who passed by. These spontaneous messages offer us a unique window into the vulgar Latin spoken in the streets, quite different from the formal Latin of classical writers. Thermopolia were the fast food establishments of the Roman world, and Pompeii had nearly 90 of them scattered throughout the city, concentrated especially along the main streets. These establishments were characterized by their masonry counters with large terracotta vessels called dolia embedded in the surface, where stews of legumes, fish soups, braised meats, and other foods were kept hot and ready to serve to passing customers. The Thermopolium of Vetutius Placidus, located on the Via dell'Abbondanza, is one of the best preserved in all of Pompeii, with its counter richly decorated with polychrome marble fragments and an elaborate painted lararium on the back wall, where Mercury, god of commerce, was venerated alongside Dionysus, god of wine, and the Lares, who protected the household. The quality of these decorations suggests that the owner enjoyed a certain social status, demonstrating that merchants and artisans could achieve respectability in Pompeian society. For citizens who lived in small apartments without their own kitchen, these establishments were absolutely essential, places to share a hot meal and catch up on the latest news and rumors from the neighborhood. The Stabian Baths represented the oldest and largest public bath complex in Pompeii, strategically located at the intersection of the city's two main streets, the Via dell'Abbondanza and the Via Stabianum. Roman public baths were much more than simple places for personal hygiene. They functioned as true social centers where citizens of all classes gathered to relax after work, conduct business, cultivate friendships, and keep up with public affairs. The complex, covering more than 3,500 square meters, was divided into completely separate sections for men and women, each with its own sequence of thermal rooms, the apoditerium or changing room, where bathers left their clothes in wall niches, the tepidarium of tepid temperature to acclimate the body, the caldarium with its hot water tub and cold water labrum, and the frigidarium with its pool for a revitalizing cold bath. An ingenious hypocauste system circulated hot air produced by underground furnaces beneath raised floors and through cavities in the walls, heating the rooms uniformly and efficiently. The complex also included a palaestra or open-air gymnasium with porticos on 3 of its sides, a swimming pool, and even a bowling alley where stone balls were found during excavations. The House of the Faun was undoubtedly the largest and most luxurious private residence in all of Pompeii, occupying an entire city block with its more than 3,000 square meters of built area. Its name comes from the charming bronze statue of a dancing faun that stood in the center of the impluvium of the main atrium, a mythological figure, half man, half goat, associated with wild nature and the pleasures of life. The house belonged to a family of the highest local elite, probably the Satrae, according to an inscription found at the site, and was decorated with some of the most extraordinary mosaics that have survived from the ancient world. The most famous of all, the Alexander mosaic, occupied the floor of the main exedra and depicted the Battle of Issus between Alexander the Great and the Persian king Darius III, a masterpiece more than 5 meters long, composed of approximately 1.5 million small stone and glass tesserae that captured the drama, movement, and emotion of combat with astonishing precision and detail. The mansion also featured 2 atriums, 2 spacious peristyle gardens surrounded by columns, its own private bath system with tepidarium and caldarium, and rooms decorated with frescoes in the first Pompeian style that imitated panels of expensive marble. Beyond the mansions, of the wealthy and the spaces of daily commerce, the amphitheater of Pompeii rose at the eastern end of the city as the oldest known permanent stone amphitheater in the Roman world, built around the year 70 before our era with private funds donated by 2 local magistrates. With a capacity to hold up to 20,000 spectators, practically the entire population of the city and visitors from neighboring communities, the amphitheater was the stage for the most popular spectacles of Roman life. Here, gladiatorial combats that could last several days were held, along with hunts of wild animals brought from the far reaches of the empire, and public executions that served as both entertainment and warning. Gladiators were true celebrities of their time, and graffiti found on the walls of Pompeii described them as admired heroes and objects of romantic desire. One painted poster declared a certain gladiator to be the heartthrob of the girls. In the year 59 of our era, a violent brawl between Pompeian fans and visitors from neighboring Nuceria during some gladiatorial games resulted in numerous deaths and injuries, prompting the Roman Senate to order the amphitheater closed for 10 years as punishment for the disorder. The Temple of Isis represented the vibrant presence of Eastern cults in the religious life of Pompeii, eloquent testimony to how Egyptian beliefs had traveled across the Mediterranean to find enthusiastic devotees among the Romans. The cult of Isis had arrived in Pompeii around the year 100 before our era, and the Egyptian goddess of fertility, magic, and motherhood attracted followers from all social classes, especially women, slaves, and merchants, who found in her an accessible and compassionate deity. The original temple had been destroyed in the devastating earthquake of the year 62, but was completely and quickly rebuilt thanks to the generosity of a wealthy freedman named Numerius Papidius Ampliatus, who dedicated the new building in the name of his son of barely 6 years to facilitate the boy's entry into the city council. The sanctuary combined Roman architectural elements with Egyptian-inspired decorations, including a purgatorium where sacred water from the Nile was kept for purification rituals, and an ecclesiasterion, or meeting hall where initiates participated in ceremonies that promised salvation and a personal relationship with the deity that would endure beyond death. Imagine waking up in Pompeii on the morning of August 24th, or perhaps October 24th, according to more recent research. The sun rises over the Bay of Naples, tinting the water in golden hues. The markets open their doors with the usual bustle. The ovens of the bakeries are already hot, producing the bread that will feed the city. Small tremors have shaken the region for the past 4 days, but the inhabitants are completely accustomed to these seismic movements. They are so common in Campania that no one pays them much attention. Pliny the Younger, who was observing from Misenum across the bay, would later write that these tremors were not particularly alarming, because they are frequent in Campania. No one suspects that beneath their feet, magma is inexorably rising through the volcanic rock, accumulating a monstrous pressure that will soon be absolutely impossible to contain. By 1 in the afternoon, a column of smoke, ash and pumice will begin to rise from the summit of Vesuvius, reaching more than 30 kilometers high, darkening the sky and turning day into night. And in less than 24 hours, this vibrant city full of life will be buried under meters of volcanic material, paradoxically preserved by the same catastrophe that destroyed it. Now, I want to bring you into the present and show you how these places look today. Thanks for being here, and if you have ideas or suggestions for future cities, share them in the comments. Let's get into it. The Forum of Pompeii remains as the heart of the archaeological park, its partially standing columns still framing the threatening silhouette of Vesuvius in the background in a juxtaposition that is chilling for anyone who knows the history. Visitors today walk on the same travertine pavement that Pompeians trod nearly 2,000 years ago, though now the space is empty of the vendors. Politicians and citizens who once animated it with their daily bustle. The Temple of Jupiter preserves its imposing podium and part of its monumental stairs, but the statues of the gods were long ago transferred to the National Archaeological Museum of Naples for their protection and exhibition. The Via dell'Abbondanza continues to be one of the most traveled streets in Pompeii, though now by tourists from around the world instead of Roman merchants and artisans. The shop facades preserve their stone counters with the holes where vessels were embedded, and in numerous places one can still see the electoral graffiti, commercial announcements, and decorative paintings that adorned establishments 2 millennia ago. The stepping stones for crossing the street remain exactly in their original place, silent and moving witnesses to how urban life was organized in the Roman world. The Stabian baths today offer one of the best preserved examples of Roman thermal architecture in the entire ancient world. Visitors can walk through the same rooms that Pompeians used for their daily bathing ritual. Admire the delicate stucco decorations that still cover some vaults with motifs of athletes and mythological figures. And understand the sophisticated hypercaust heating system that made the luxury of hot water possible. Much of the original pictorial decoration has been transferred to the museum in Naples, but the fundamental architectural structure remains remarkably intact. The House of the Faun welcomes modern visitors with a faithful replica of the dancing faun in its atrium, while the extraordinary original Alexander mosaic is displayed in a special room at the Naples Museum. However, the monumental scale of the residence remains profoundly impressive, and its peristyle gardens allow one to vividly imagine the life of refined luxury that the Pompeian elite led in their private mansions. The black and white geometric mosaic, pavements of many rooms still remain in their original place after 2,000 years. The amphitheater remains remarkably intact as one of the best preserved monuments in the archaeological park. Its elliptical arena and stone tiers practically the same as the eruption left them. In the year 2016, guitarist David Gilmour of Pink Floyd performed here the first concerts with an audience since the year 79, an extraordinary reminder that this space was designed precisely to bring the community together around spectacle and shared emotion. Today, the amphitheater continues to be one of the most visited and photographed monuments at the archaeological site. The Temple of Isis was one of the first buildings discovered when systematic excavations began in the 18th century, and its exceptional state of preservation caused a true sensation throughout Europe, fueling the fascination with ancient Egypt that would characterize neoclassicism. The original wall paintings and sculptures were carefully transferred to the Naples Museum, but the architectural structure of the temple remains visible and accessible, allowing visitors to understand the spatial layout of a sanctuary dedicated to an Eastern deity on Roman soil. Pompeii today receives nearly 3 million visitors each year, making it one of the most important and visited archaeological sites in the entire world. Declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, the city offers an absolutely unique and irreplaceable window into the daily life of the Roman Empire, paradoxically preserved by the same volcanic catastrophe that destroyed and buried it. Archaeological excavations continue to reveal surprising new discoveries each year, from frescoes with vibrant colors to food remains in the vessels of Thermopolia. And conservation efforts seek to protect this extraordinary legacy for the future generations who will come to walk these same cobblestone streets. I do really appreciate you watching this video. Your ideas, input, and constructive feedback really do shape what comes next. Feel free to leave a comment below. Until next time.